gonna get my gonna start the bozos of the media. Let's start with Penn Jillette, one of my favorite bozos, the clown college graduate, high school dropout, all-around juggler and Las Vegas entertainer. Seems to have nothing on his mind except promoting his business and making more and more money. Per the internet, he's worth $150 million just himself, and his little mute buddy was worth the same. But that isn't good enough for him. The way he promotes himself is by being the obnoxious bozo clown that he is, the big doofus, 6'8" monkey man who, like most big fat guys, got their way by pushing their weight around. But here's a guy who then claims to be an expert in everything, a self-appointed genius. I guess that's what you learn juggling on the road instead of going to high school. And he comes out to make even more money. He goes every place he can. This doofus with Dancing with the Stars, we needed to see that. I upchucked my lunch one time after watching one of those shows, and that was the last time I tuned in there. We also have, he's a juggler. He hooked up with some mute high school Latin teacher and somehow worshipped the unamazing Randy, James Randi, the guy who came out against magic, kind of, and told everybody it was a joke, but and just entertainment, while everybody was delusionally telling them they were master occultists. And of course, this is certainly a good start, and we've had enough of these theatrical liars, tricksters, portraying themselves as having some sort of abilities when they really don't. But there's unfortunately a bunch of dirty secrets behind James Unamazing Randy. That is quite, not only was he involved in criminal activities, his donations to his foundations, which come from all sorts of nefarious areas, so it is alleged, and he's produced nothing. So the bottom line is that he attacks who? Psychics? Well, what is this nonsense? And why is he being paid millions of dollars a year that his corporation generated while active years ago? It was recently closed because he's retired at his late age. What is that all about? There's a whole film on him and his partner, an illegal alien at some time that he assisted in the country legally, that he picked up at a library. How nice. Such a charming guy. There's been a whole bunch of things on him with different lewd sex tapes on the internet, etc. Who knows if these things are real or not, but let's not get it. But I mean, that's the kind of guy that Penn Jillette, who claims to be a great liberal, supports. I mean, this is the kind of thinking this self-appointed expert has come up with, that thinks that this is great. So his entire life is based on this guy. He got some thrill that he would come out and expose magic and thought this was great. Penn Jillette also, in his different books and so forth, of how he trained himself to do things like swallow fire, burnt the hell out of himself every single time he did it. He couldn't figure out how to do it right and didn't know how to train himself. Well, this is the kind of judgment that we're talking about from this guy who wants to come out and criticize what is consciousness understanding without any background, without any reading, without anything else, believing these idiot people. But he's connected to what apparently is alleged everyone else is, to the criminal, corrupt, Illuminati, Black Lodge type people. Let's face it, he's bought into the society. He doesn't take vacations. He does every show he can. Of course, coming out as a libertarian, which is another code word for I don't want to pay taxes or take care of anybody, certainly doesn't prove his point or assist anything either. He likes to criticize people. Going on Donald Trump's Apprentice show, came out with that, saying how it was conned and everything else, then backed off because they paid him money. So he'll do anything to promote his business, and he pretty much says that. He writes books. He's constantly going on every possible show he can get on, and clearly states in his Presto book on playing kinda doctor of weight loss, that all these things worked out great because it filled up his little comedy show garbage that he does as a magician. So all magical acts are kind of amazing and fun to look. It is an optical illusion, basically, and that's all it is, but it is titillating to the monkey brain that follow people like him. He's made, as I mentioned, over $150 million in personal asset wealth, and then cries that he doesn't have enough money, then he has to sell a $2 million house that he claimed he loves and built like a prison, because he wanted to live in a prison because Daddy was a prison warden. I mean, the story just gets more and more outrageous with this goofball who then wants to go out and tell people what is good for you in health-wise, when he put a show together, his famous bullshit show, where he criticized and attacked everything, and then in his new book, Presto, talks about how he really was wrong on everything in life. I mean, this guy is a confused mess who thought that dipping cheese chunks in peanut butter was a perfect meal, wouldn't get him fat, and eating boxes and boxes of Krispy Kremes right out of the oven would be fine. He wondered why he was so fat and so sick. So then he follows what is a vegetarian diet, but he won't call it that because he's already criticized vegetarianism. He criticized organics. He criticized everything. Now he's found out he's wrong and basically even saved his life. But it was up to him. None of that would be around today, and he would be dead, which would have done us a big favor. His kind of disinformation lying campaign and his goofball show, which featured a lot of naked women, got people to watch, and there was some interesting information that he had absolutely nothing to do with. These shows and his bullshit show and every other show that he does is written by other people, particularly that show, which is a quasi-documentary where people go out and research for you. I'm sure he read over the research and claims to be one of the researchers, but let's get real here. He's too busy dancing with the stars and wife-swapping TV show to really get involved in much research. Let's get real, on top of doing his show and everything else. So whatever information was put together by his writing staff and then decorated by a bunch of naked women jumping around, created a show that was successful and did produce some interesting information, because none of us really researched this stuff very well, and certainly is something that I personally have watched and a lot of other people have. But the point is, he came to a lot of wrong conclusions. And of course, the more controversial, the better, because that's what gets people to tune in. And they'll even tune in further, even if they don't like what you have to say, by making sure that you throw in lots of nudity and sexual infiltrations. So with that, of course, he had his little hit show, but it was one of the many things that he's then making millions of dollars on. So $150 million ain't enough for him, and he's very poor, so he says. He likes living in a jail, which is kind of amusing, as a libertarian would like to live in a place that is designed for the lowest level of human survival, and that's a prison. But after all, Daddy was one. Yeah, again, we get into that Illuminati police connection. Always comes around. It's amazing how you can find these kind of connections. Just like with so many other people, there's that police connection. What a surprise. So it goes on and on with all these things with this person who's out there and supporting people who are negative and not achieving anything, holding back science, holding back the progression of consciousness and new thinking in a world where nothing is working, where common science has been a failure. We're working with 500-year-old science, which is just kind of in the ballpark with a little bit of help. I mean, the Newtonian science has been proven to be invalid in most of it, yet there is certainly a shred of truth in it. But we need to go past that. But this guy wants to keep us in the kindergarten goo-goo philosophy, like his buddy that he worships. So these kind of media bozos who want to come out and shoot their mouth off, and then people like Richard Dawkins and other people, because he's a big mouth person, why would you meet with a Las Vegas juggler as a person of science? Well, it's strange that this person would even give him a venue for this. This is a guy who did Dancing with the Stars, Apprentice, a goofy business show, Wife Swapping, another TV show where you trade lives for a little while, What is this? This is this guy's credibility, that he's a juggler, that he puts on a magic show in Las Vegas and he's a self-appointed expert? This kind of media bozos and their exposure and people following them, watching them and everything else needs to stop. You're giving money and credibility to people who are hurting your society, who are destroying your society, who are not allowing free thought, Mr. Libertarian, non-taxpayer. You are destroying society. You have destroyed billions of people's lives who would have benefited from real technology, real consciousness evolving, and real science that would have healed millions of people. Your family, relatives, and pets are in the ground now because of people like this and because of your support of them. Stop it. Start following and supporting those who do something for this planet and don't keep making self-appointed jugglers rich.